Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Kingdom and its Stories. We're delighted to have you with us, wherever you're listening and or watching from, and whatever time it happens to be, wherever you are. We're delighted to have you with us. Let me remind you, as I always do at the beginning of the broadcast, that there is a one purpose of this broadcast, and that is not to highlight or celebrate the interviewee, though we have some wonderful interviewees. It's to use their testimony to cause us to think more intently, more purposefully about how we might better be Jesus' hands and feet in our own context. And today we have with us Steve Freeman. Steve, welcome. Welcome to the broadcast. We're delighted to have you with us today. Whoops, I see my dog just came into the background. And her name is Aussie, by the way. Very creative name for an Australian Shepherd. But Steve, we're really delighted to have you with us. And because people who are listening don't know who you are, give us the elevator speech. Who is Steve Freeman?
Well, first, thank you for the invite to come on the program. It's just an honor to be with you all and to make some more connections with some of your friends as well. Yeah, Steve Freeman, grew up in the Midwest. I had a primitive Baptist father and a Lutheran mother, and so I was raised in the Lutheran church because mom won out. And I have been married 40 years to my wonderful
And still do
bride.
that, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And we have two kids. One lives on the West Coast, and one lives here in Indiana, where I'm from. And quick elevator speech. I was in the marketplace for 23 years, but I was also bivocational. So I was working as a volunteer with Young Life, and eventually worked as a volunteer as a city and state coordinator for March for Jesus back in those days, anyway. And was a part of the prayer movement within our city and helped raise up a lot of different prayer groups across the region that would pray
Mm.
for our city and different conferences and things that our city would host as well. That's kind of the short story of it. Um, Jesus lover, and just really, really excited about the times that we're living in right now.
Well, Steve, tell us about the kinds of ministries that God has allowed you to be his hands and feet.
Mm, love to. Um, Through the years, I've always been involved in some level of ministry and helped plant a church in 1990. And that church, actually, when I stepped out in the marketplace, released me to into the mission field and supporting me as well. And it's been that relationship ever since. And so I found myself. It seems like it's been a journey of discovery because the Lord seems to reveal new things and different things to be involved in. But probably more recently, over the last 16 years, I've been working as a volunteer with InterVarsity, primarily within Greek InterVarsity, which is a subset that focuses on the fraternity and sororities on campuses around the country. And Indianapolis is a host city for their annual conference that they do, the Greek conference anyway. And so early on, I started through a call from a friend of mine in InterVarsity. I started to put together a local expression of prayer for the event. And over the years, that just grew and grew and grew to we played a significant role in coordinating prayer for the Urbana conference that was in Indianapolis back in 2022. So yeah, it's been a wonderful journey, and I've found myself, especially with the calling of prayer and intercession, many times it feels like you're on the tip of the spear, and I'm so encouraged because I'm looking at so much prayer that has been established and gone forth over the last, oh my gosh, 3 or 4 decades, that I really do believe that we're coming into one of the greatest outpourings probably in history, and we're already seeing that on the campuses.
Could you unpack that a little bit? I'm
Oh, I'd love
interested.
to. I would love to. Yeah, we noticed, gosh, even probably 5, 6 years ago, that the students that were coming to the conference, the Greek conference, really desired to have a personal encounter with Jesus. And we would provide a prayer room, and we'd have people to pray for students if they wanted to prayer. And, we'd have a few people that would come in throughout the weekend. But we noticed in the last probably 6 or 7 years, more and more and more students were being drawn to the prayer room to have an encounter with Jesus, even to the point that we were beginning to have students, coming before us and just saying, "What must I do to be saved?" So there was this hunger in students for something that was true and something that was real. And I believe they're finding it in Jesus. And so we've had this wonderful opportunity to pray with hundreds and hundreds of students through the years. And
Well,
uh,
you've really piqued my curiosity. Um, I have grandsons who are this age,
yeah,
and I know that they live in a culture which really doesn't seem to be interested in spiritual things, but you're describing something which is counter to the kind of story that I've heard from my grandsons
yeah.
about young people's interest in Christ. I mean, how did these kids that are coming to the prayer room hear about it? How do they find out about it? What draws them to that?
In the conference, what InterVarsity did was they just made a point to uh, highlight that there was a prayer room available and people that were on site to be able to pray with students. It was never, we never forced them to come to the prayer room, but over the years, we just saw it grow and grow. At Urbana in 2022, we had about 160 people on site doing prayer for students. And over that particular weekend, we had probably close to 2,000 students that came through the prayer room and had an encounter with Jesus. And even that, what we noticed too is that I think at that conference we probably had 800 plus first time decisions for Jesus. And so it was just that's the thing that I've noticed is there's such a
This is
hunger.
an intervarsity conference,
Yeah,
right?
but it's not
So
just
what
intervarsity.
would draw unbelieving students to an intervarsity Christian fellowship conference?
They're friends. It would
Okay,
be their peers that would invite them to say, "Hey, you need to come and be a part of this weekend. It's just a great time, and we're just going to have a lot of fun." And the good thing, well, the probably the positive thing about working within the Greek system is they already have a sense of family in their Greek families and their fraternity and sororities. So it's not
okay,
hard for if you have one student within a sorority that says, "Hey, we need to go to this," she'll end up bringing a bunch of her sorority sisters, and vice versa with
okay,
the guys.
all right.
Yeah. But I will say this that, I've been trying to track some of the outpourings that's been going on. I mean, Florida, Illinois, Kentucky, Ohio, that's just the Midwest. And I know there's a number of things that are happening out in California on campuses. And I think I saw recently where there were several thousand people that were baptized out there in the Pacific Ocean. And so, yeah, we are just seeing just an amazing outpouring. And it was interesting, if I could unpack this just for a second. I know we don't have much time,
Sure. Yeah,
but we noticed in 2022 when the students came to Indianapolis, a number of those students came back to our Greek conference in February and had a very powerful encounter with Jesus that took a number of those students to Asbury that next, I think it was March, April timeframe anyway.
right.
And so then we saw those students come back and really begin to have an impact on their campuses. An example would be in at Purdue back in 2022. I'd say InterVarsity Greek had maybe 20, 25 students that were involved in weekly Bible studies and all. By this time, like just several months ago, what we have now is close to 750 students that are involved weekly in Bible studies, and the majority of those are being led by students, by their peers. And so it's just been an amazing amazing outpouring. In particular, in Purdue, in February of last year, a year ago, Unite Us came through and did an event that brought out about 4,500 students. And we had well over 2,000 students that made first time decisions for Christ just at that one meeting. And so suddenly Purdue had this influx of several thousand students that had just made a decision to follow Jesus. And the good thing was, I think Purdue campus ministries were ready because the campus ministries were already devoting time together just to build the friendships amongst the ministry leaders. And so when the outpouring happened, it's like all those ministries really worked together to make sure these students could get plugged into community and get into mentoring, discipleship, and Bible study as well.
See, the numbers that you are talking about are just sound phenomenal.
Yeah.
Why isn't the church generally aware of this move of God's Spirit among young people?
That's a great question. I know that my desire for my generation and those that have been longtime followers of Christ and a part of the church, I really believe their finest hour is before them. I think the opportunity for them to step up and become spiritual fathers and mothers, because there is a move of God that's happening now with the next generation, and there's a hunger within those students to want to be able to tap into the wisdom that our generation carries.
Wow, I'm encouraged. Let me go back a little bit
Yeah,
to the beginning of our interview. You started in the business world,
yeah, yeah.
but it sounds like it wasn't that you decided to move from the business world into, what we call vocational ministry. It was seemed like a parallel thing, something that was happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. What is that? How did
Well,
that happen?
yeah, it's once again a long story, but I'll try to really encapsulate it. I came right out of high school and went right into the marketplace working for AT&T, and then over a period of time, there was a layoff, and so I ended up working for a little small upstart company that was owned by a Christian. Actually, it was co-owned by a Christian and a Catholic, of course, both Jesus followers, and so I came in. The company began to grow at such a rate that I was going to school at the time for manufacturing management, and I got promoted into a position that I was already that I was going to school for. And so at that point, I actually stepped back from my education. I figured I'd get back to it later and really work on the marketplace. And so I learned much about the kingdom through my involvement in the marketplace. When you
Hmm.
look at, especially if you're in any kind of management position, working with people, personalities, incentives, and helping people become the best version of themselves and being productive and a positive addition to the profit of the company and all that. That became I so enjoyed it. I mean, I woke up every day just thanking God for the job that I had. I just had no idea that 23 years in the marketplace was going to shape and form me into the person that I am today and the impact that I can have in ministry. So what I'm saying is God can use uh, our secular jobs and the things that he's called us to actually equip us and train us for the things of the kingdom if we have eyes to see it. And so it was just I was so blessed. It's just
So, Steve,
it's
how would you encourage those in the marketplace to have eyes that see it?
oh yes. The thing that I learned was one of the things I would see people from God's perspective, not from their own perspective. So, if I was talking to a marketplace people right now, I would say, look at your staff and look at them from the perspective of God and interact and respond to and cultivate a friendship from that place. So, in a way, I had the ability to really tap into the heart of a person as God created them, even if they couldn't see it in themselves.
Wow. So Summarize that
Oh,
into one sentence.
one sentence is, love Jesus and love people.
Okay.
If we do that, it will. I
Yeah.
think we're seeing it's changing the world.
So
Hmm.
try to see them as God sees them
Hmm. Yeah.
and look at them with the eyes of Christ.
Yep. Yeah.
And what does he see in them? And
Yeah.
how would he respond to them? Yeah. Okay, great. Steve, now you've talked a lot in these huge, big, universal descriptions of what happens. Let's come down to the micro level. What are some stories of students or people that you've worked with that can illustrate how God used you specifically in the lives of people?
Mm. Whew, where to start? The it's such a privilege to be able to pray with students, and many times students will come in and they don't know you, they don't know me, and so they would have a tendency to be very, very transparent with things that they were struggling with, whatever. But to be able to help them encounter Jesus in those moments of prayer has been one of the greatest joys of my life. I've seen years and years of bondage just completely break off when they recognize Jesus in the context of the trials and tribulations that they're going through.
Yeah,
So,
without names, talk about one of those.
yes, yeah, I'd love to. One in particular, just really struggling with life. And man, the Lord got a hold of him and began to speak truth into him and really begin to address his true identity in Christ. In the process, he accepted Jesus. And what I saw from him, he came from a place of just not sure he even wanted to live to actually becoming not only a positive impact, but an influencer to those around him with carrying Jesus. And so now when you look at it, this particular student, when he eventually graduated, he's gone into a career into medical, and he's going to have amazing impact, in his when he graduates. Who knows where the Lord's going to send him? But the other thing that I noticed too, not only with this student but others, is that when they would graduate, they would go back to or wherever God was sending them to, and they would get involved in the local church and become a significant influence that would lead them into carrying leadership responsibilities and all that as well. So, like in Indianapolis, what we're seeing is there's a number of college students that we've had the opportunity to pray with and mentor through the years that have come back and made Indianapolis home and now has had a positive impact on the kingdom within the local church body in Indianapolis.
Steve, let me just take the opportunity of this pause to do a station break. And folks, you're listening to the Kingdom and its Stories. Uh, and we're delighted to have you with us today. And the purpose of this is to interview people who've allowed Jesus to take them in their hands and feet, their voices, their minds, their eyes, their ears, and use those as Jesus' hands and feet, as a metaphor, and to allow them to use their lives to be a witness of God's love in his kingdom. And today we have Steve Freeman with us. Steve, we're so delighted to have you with us today. So give us some more of these micro stories that
Mm.
will help us understand how God can use little me in
Yeah,
this huge universe
yeah,
and world of people to be his hands and feet.
yeah. Well, the one thing that I noticed is that in um, with students that were having encounters with Jesus, uh, one of the greatest things we could do is we brought them in and had them be a part of our prayer room. And so, for a short season, they would be paired up with other people that were more seasoned in prayer and prayer ministry and intercession. And I was amazed at how it accelerated their growth and built confidence. And so, what we noticed in a number of the students that they became intercessors. In fact, one of the amazing things right now, just kind of a post 15, 20-year perspective here, is that the grace of prayer is now rising up amongst men as much as it is with women. So like when we do our prayer gatherings in our city and praying for uh, conferences, campuses, uh, ministries, and all that stuff, what I'm noticing now is it's like a 50-50 with the several hundred people that we have that pray, that it's men and women. Where I think before it was always kind of the women that were in the back closet of the church, doing their thing. It's like I believe what God's doing right now is he is highlighting that prayer and the grace of prayer and intercession is for everyone. And so the students, they're coming into something that's already being modeled in such an amazing way, and they're connecting to it quickly. And now I can say we've got lots of students now that they're actually a part of my national and international prayer team that I will rally together when we pray for events and stuff.
So you talked about a prayer team, international prayer team. What is that?
So the way I've always approached prayer is my favorite statement I learned from a guy years ago: build at the speed of friendship. And so what I've done through the years is the Lord has allowed me to be in places to where I could actually build friendships, and out of those friendships is how we have developed. That's kind of our key strategy on putting together teams of intercessors. And so I just recently did an appreciation banquet for our intercessors here in this region where I live. And it was one night I asked him, I said, okay, turn off your prayer, Grace. We just want to lavish upon you. And then I brought 5 different people in representing different ministries and campuses. And they shared their testimonies of how the impact of the intercession and prayer of the people there have had on their campuses and ministries and students.
You talked about a breakthrough that you feel is coming. Um, what do you mean by that? Can you
Um,
unpack that?
yeah. It's interesting. Maybe from my perspective, I feel like it's already arrived. And in some ways, I feel like we as a church, it's the what I call spiritual jet lag. We're trying to catch up. So with the outpouring that's happening across the campuses around the country and around the world, it's like the local church is going, gosh, what's our place in all of this? And they're figuring it out, and they're finding ways of connecting in and being a part of being able to mentor and disciple. But I think when I look at, if I'm unpacking this, I think there's a great future for the church because of the so many people that are, in particular, students that are coming to the Lord, and they're looking for people that are seasoned and have been walking with Jesus for a long time.
So if we have pastors listening or people who are in a leadership position of a local church, how would you encourage them to get involved?
Oh gosh, I most of it's probably just really looking for what God is already doing in their particular area. And the other thing
So
I
how
would
would they
say,
find out? How would they
that's
find out?
that's where the friendship comes in. It's a willingness to step outside of just what we're responsible for and actually be able to start making friends with people that are peers and leaders within our city. I spent years uh, building a relational network of pastors across our region. So we loved, and it's just amazing because when we did that, then we had lots of friends that suddenly emerged, and now people were intertwined with one another's destinies and actually involved in helping resource one another from a friendship place. So I would say build the relational friendship foundation, and you'll see your city transformed.
Steve, we got a little more than 30 seconds. What's your final word to the listeners of this program?
Mm. Be encouraged because God is doing something in our day that intercessors and prayer warriors that have gone on to glory contended for decades. And we're
Hmm,
seeing it unfold before our very eyes. So be
right.
encouraged.
Steve Freeman, thank you. God bless you. Thank you for being a part of our broadcast today. God bless.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.